This idea is for a studio that you control with your iPad. So I was looking at like basically I want like a really portable, a really accessible studio that I can access from the couch or the bed or a chair or a room or portably, even if I need to. And I think the iPad is just my favorite way of working. I just like the iPad. I like the iPad way of working. It just doesn't have studio power. So there's a number of studios out there, like the Joco recorder that can record 24 channels, and you control it with an iPad. So it doesn't have the effects. So then when you're looking for effects, and you look at something like the Ableton Push, which is the whole DAW, the whole DAW in that device, in a step sequencer device that they built, but it doesn't have a big screen and it doesn't have great control like the iPad. So basically what you want to do is like have a box like the Ableton Push, maybe even have a step sequencer or some functionality or faders functionality, whatever, like a controller to run your studio on and control it with your iPad, and then connect it to the iPad screen and have the iPad screen control all the functionality, not with iPad power, but with the actual box being the horsepower. So this is like putting together a studio that, like a complete studio with effects, and hopefully third-party effects. Hopefully, it'd be like Waze. Waze has another one. Like Waze has a big collection of effects, and they have an expensive mixer that can record 16 channels. And the thing is that you can't load that session into a DAW. You can't load that session onto your computer. After you do the effects, you either have to record the effects, or you have to do the effects again on your computer. You can't actually save your settings and stuff for a computer. So this is where Ableton Push is better, because it can take an Ableton Push session and load the whole push session from that little standalone box onto your computer, and you get the extra screens and stuff that you don't get on that little box. So you do want the full computer power, so you can get all the effects from the other companies and stuff like FabFilter and stuff like that. And Ableton and Waze are the closest. Waze has third-party plugin support, but they need to create something where you have a session, where you can load the session onto your DAW and continue your session that way. And Ableton, they need third-party plugin support. So right now you can just use the DAW plugins and the devices you build yourself. That's the other attractive thing. You can build your own devices for Ableton and use those on the standalone device. And but they need third-party plugin support. So everyone's like almost there where you get like a whole studio in a box, and then you just need something like an iPad or even a controller, or even without the iPad, a controller and a screen would be just as good. Like the MPC is pretty close too there. If you look at it, they have a nice big screen, they have a controller to get around software. So this idea is basically just doing it all the way. Tascam has a big digital mixer, but then you can't add effects. You just have their effects. You can't have Blaze effects or whatever. Behringer Wing, you can add the sound grid. You can add the effects via sound grid, but you're stuck the whole thing without the streamline to the DAW. And adding effects is more difficult than streamlining the Behringer Wing to the DAW. So it's debatable if you even want to add a sound grid or just add a computer. So everyone's got it partially there, like almost there, where you can just like stick a console or a mixer or a box and an iPad, a box and a portable iPad on your desk, and be done with it, and just be done with it, where the rest is up to the instruments or whatever. So hopefully that's the other thing with this box, is there's analog boxes that are digitally controlled now. And there's a new better one that just came out at NAMM, where you can load up to 6 little analog circuit boxes into it and control them with your iPad or your computer. See, building in an option to have analog circuits, because analog circuits, I've seen a whole synthesizer on a chip now. So integrated circuits are being able to do things like synthesizers. So you could really make small analog circuits possible. Like digitally controlling analog circuits could be a pretty powerful tool, especially in a sound designer, especially like an integrated chip analog circuit where it's an integrated circuit on a chip, where it's so small that you think this would be very powerful to the sound designer, where they're now going to sound like tighter, like presumably you're going to get a tighter sound and a really almost like a harsher effect, right? Like you don't expect it to be as big and as well rounded as as a big synthesizer. I really like to hear the difference in sound quality. It'd be like using guitar pedals instead of using studio gear. And that's the other thing you could do. You could put guitar pedals into circuits and have them digitally controlled too. This would really give you the full featured power of the studio if you could do a studio in a box with an iPad and then have the ability to connect like digitally controlled analog gear to it, which you do, which you already do with a computer. You can buy the digitally controlled analog gear for your computer and control it that way. So just to do it on a separate system that's proprietary to being a studio and stuff.